Okay, how many of you are done with your cover for your interactive notebook? Okay, just one or two of you. It's fine. This is something that you can just kind of tuck in your folder and be working on, and when you're finished, we'll put it on your cover of your interactive notebook, and it will end up looking like this, or however you've colored yours to look. So let's talk about interactive notebooks, because this is a large part of your science class this year. And if you're in my homeroom, this is what we do also for Bible. So Mrs. Engelhardt does something a little bit different for Bible, but we're going to do interactive notebooks both for Bible and also for science. Some years we have done them for math. I'm going to kind of wait until a little bit later in the year to do it for math, but we're going to get started with our science and Bible ones right away. That's why I've had you working on your cover the past couple days. Let me explain interactive notebooks and how they work and why we do them, and then you can ask some questions. So you all have your science textbook. All right, we're going to go through the textbook. We're going to learn a lot of fun things in science. I'm not a very good textbook reader and then comprehender. When I read it, I kind of need to break it down after I read the passage and have it make sense to me, to rewrite it in my own words. Something that is a large part of something I want you to learn this year is how to take notes. Because now I have a student who is college age, high school age, middle school age, and then elementary age. So it's been kind of great to watch the skills that you need. And one of the skills that you really need in all of your classes is to be able to read a textbook and break it down and take notes in a way that when you have an exam or when you have a test, you know what to study, because you can't study a big fat thick textbook or a huge chapter in science, right? So typically what you're used to is your teacher handing you a study guide and saying, here you go, memorize this, this is what's on the test. So we're going to try to inch you away from that a little bit this year and get you a little bit more used to taking notes and studying from your own notes. All right, that's what you're going to have to do in middle school. So we're going to do that gradually. I'm still going to kind of give you some study guides along the way, but these interactive notebooks, this is going to be your study guide. This is also going to count for a test grade every single quarter, sometimes twice a quarter, that you'll turn it in. So let's explain these. INB, you'll always see that on the board for like assignments. INB is an interactive notebook. All right, that means for every lesson, for most lessons that we do in science and Bible, we will do our lesson, and then we will have something called a foldable. Basically, it's a piece of paper folded up that has notes on it that take what we learned and condense it down to the really important facts that you need to know. So if we do a big, long lesson about the water cycle, and we talk about it, and we read 4 pages in our textbook about it, and you leave, how much of that are you going to remember the next day? Just probably the important pieces. So we're going to take the important pieces, and we're going to take notes, and they stay in here. So here's an example of somebody's from last year, several years ago. And you can see, okay, so our first unit in science is going to be called natural cycles. So this is just the title page that this person colored for that chapter. All right, so then on day 1 of natural cycles, and this is stuff that we'll be doing next week as we get into our science book, here is a foldable called elements. All right, so we read a couple pages about the elements, and then we took this foldable, and it has all the important information. So you see this 97%, that must be a number that they were supposed to remember for a test, right? And we've got these little flaps that kind of have some important information. Okay, so for most of your lessons, this is what you'll be doing. We'll do our lesson, and then we'll kind of break it down into some really important facts that you're going to need to study. All right, I know this number is on a test. These 4 elements are on a test. So it's kind of just a little bit of a fun way to get the information that we need to know. Anybody know what this is called? Juliet?
The periodic table of elements? No!
Yes, the periodic table of elements. Yep.
I love that music video.
Yes, there are some really cool videos. So you can see here we've got like a list of vocab. These were important vocab words for this lesson. We've got another foldable. Look at, here's a diagram of the water cycle that we'll be getting into. So every day, almost, you're gonna pick up one of these. I shouldn't say every day. Probably about 3 out of 5 days we'll be filling out a foldable, because it usually takes us a couple days to fill one out. So here is, a writing assignment that you're gonna need to do about the water cycle. Here's this person's story that they wrote, and here's their illustration to go with it. So now, let's talk about this. After every unit, you're going to turn this book in and you get graded on it. Now, how can you get a grade? Because basically, everything you do in here, I'm giving you the answers for. We go through together and we fill out each of these notes. So if you really can't get it wrong, right? You really can't. Welcome. Good to see you. We are just talking about our interactive notebooks. Okay, so you can just slip it when you're ready. After every chapter, we're going to turn this in. So if I already give you all the answers to the foldables, what do you think I'm going to grade you on for your interactive notebook? What do you think, Romy? Yes. Making sure you listened and filled it in correctly, that there's no missing things. Zachary? Your best work. I agree, yes. How neat you keep your interactive notebook is a large part of your grade, because what I'm trying to do is teach you the note-taking skills and the note-keeping skills that you need for the future. There are things that don't have quite as many pictures, but look like this that you will need to do in high school. I see them come home with my kids where they get graded on how well their notes are kept for chemistry or for biology. They have binders. Okay, so it's really important that you, every day that we have one, that you get your foldable. Sometimes people will get their foldable and they won't really be paying attention, so they'll be missing things, right? Or I do require that every foldable you take the time to get it, fill it in, glue it in, and that you color it. Now, do you have to, let me show you some of these. Some people got really creative. This is not necessary. This is just what they loved to do in their free time. We had some really creative, artsy kids that decided they were going to, like for instance, this one is just a foldable about simple machines that we learn in our force and motion unit. And she turned it into a lunch box and turned everything inside into like pieces of the lunch box. Okay? That's pretty, this is called extreme interactive notebook, right? You don't need to do that, but sometimes when people have extra time, they like to get really creative with their notebooks. We've got somebody, they turned this hot air balloon one into that theme.
Someone's good at drawing.
Yes, there's always, those really creative, artsy people that like to draw and sketch, and I know we've got some in this class too. It's not necessary. This one's a birthday cake with all sorts of stuff. You just need to, let's go back more at the beginning. You just need to make sure, and this is why you have all your colored pencils and your Flair pens. You just need to make sure, my version of it has to be colored. Every page has to be filled in, complete, in the notebook, and it has to be colored, meaning you have to use 2 different colored pencils or Flair pens to make it colored. See this vocab right here? This person just did it and used 2 different colored Flair pens just to make it aesthetically pleasing, okay? So we don't just have plain notes, all right? So you can be as creative or as not on this. I don't really care, as long as it is complete, everything is in here, and see, here's another. Sometimes a foldable will be really big. This is another foldable that we had. Can you see it? So it's a fun, kind of more creative way to get that information into your head. Any questions about this? Yes. This one is, here's another one. Oopsie, I'm gonna put that back in there. Some people left theirs behind. Some people I asked them to leave theirs behind that did a really nice job of, this is our Bible one. So for Bible, I love teaching Bible. I just love it, guys. We go through the Old Testament this year, and we learn about some amazing people. Amazing people. Some people who made some amazing mistakes, and we're going to learn from their mistakes, and some people who are just so full of faith and trust in the Lord. So we have, during our Bible lessons, we have a foldable about that person and about the character trait that we want to learn from them. For instance, this one is mercy. We learn about mercy from somebody in the Old Testament. We've got somebody who, oh look, this is the Pharaoh's dreams that Joseph. This is a good lesson. I can't wait to teach this about God's faithfulness and trusting Him even when bad times come. Yes. So we learned about somebody's integrity. We learned about the land of Ur. That's a good lesson too. This is making me excited. Here's Joseph and his 11 brothers. So lots of different things. This you will enjoy this. And when it comes to grading it, and we'll go through this again right before you turn it in. But some details when you are doing your notebook. Let's just get some exact details here so you know what you're doing. Why don't you put your hands down? I'll take questions as soon as I get through one more little chunk here. Okay, your cover needs to be on. Finish that. You know those table of contents that we cut out yesterday? Those are going to get glued right on the inside of your cover. Every time we do a foldable, okay? Every time we do one, you do it. You're going to glue it on your page. I tell you what page. For instance, I say, okay, color the title page for our natural cycles unit. Put it on page number 1. Your interactive notebook should have page numbers on the outside corner of every page. Okay? On the bottom outside corner of every page, 1 through, let's see, this year we got up to 57 pages in here. Okay? So when you do this, you're going to glue it into the page that I tell you, or that's on the board. You're going to put the number on the outside bottom corner. And then over here in your table of contents, it says Natural Cycles, page 1. And then the second one says Elements, page 2. Let's look at page 2. When I grade yours, this is what I do. I say, okay, Elements, page 2. Let's see if that's right. Yep, Elements, page 2. Periodic Table was glued on page 3. Let's go back to the table of contents. Yes, very organized. It says Periodic Table, page 3. So if you are ever, and some kids take this along to 6th grade, if you are ever in another class and you think, oh my goodness, what was, we studied cells, and I know we went through and we talked about all the different jobs that cells had. You can go over here, you can look at which unit it is. So let me see, I think that's unit 5. It is. So unit 5, look at this is our unit on cells. And if you want to say, where was that information about all the different jobs that the different parts of the cell had? You look through and you say, oh, right here, the cell anatomy, cell diagram. Let's look that up. That should be on page 48. You look up in your notebook on page 48, and I should find exactly on page 48. Looks like she didn't get to finish coloring this one. It has the foldable with all the different jobs of every part of the cell. That's why you have this table of contents. So when I'm grading your notebook, I look, is your table of contents filled out for that unit? And I have my master copy, so I know, oh, there's 14 pages in the first unit. I look at yours, I see, oh, yep, they've got them all listed. I check to make sure that all the page numbers match and that there's page numbers here. Then I go through all 14 pages. I'll open up your foldables, make sure that it's colored, and make sure that it's complete. And it counts as a test grade for every chapter that we do. A full test grade. So this first unit on the water cycle, we take a test on the water cycle, and you also turn in your interactive notebook. Both count as a full test grade. So this potentially is a very easy A test grade for you. But it's not always an easy test grade because it's teaching you organization. And guess what? Some of us, that is our strength. Some of us are really organized, neat. We keep everything organized. Some aren't. So some years I have students that really struggle, and that's okay because this just isn't their thing, but we're going to help it be their thing. And they'll grab their foldable. I'll just grab this one. They color it, but they ran out of time. So when it's time to switch or time to go to lunch, they'll think, okay, I'm just going to kind of put this on top of my books here, and I'm going to go to my next class, or I'm going to go to lunch. Okay, what happens to this? It gets lost. It's on the floor. Then they go to pack up, and it gets shoved in their backpack, right? It's on the bottom of their backpack. Did we talk about this in class yesterday about how, yeah. Gets in the bottom of the backpack, comes back out when you're at home. You work on it, but then you get it a little bit wet, and then you shove it in your locker. Remember how I talked about in your locker there should be no loose papers like this. Where do your papers go? In your folder for that subject. So what I try to do is back up and tell you now and then kind of keep track throughout the year when you get finished or when you run out of time and it's time to move on to the next subject. You're going to do that for every class in 6th grade. So what you need to get in the habit of doing, we're going to work on that, is when it's time to switch, think. Don't just shove this wherever you think it should go or jam it in your locker. You think, this is my science foldable. I don't get a second one if I lose it and if it's missing from my interactive notebook. If I go to page 3 and you don't have a periodic table, I was like, okay, that person lost their periodic table, so then you don't get the points for that specific foldable, all right? And it's not just to be mean, it's really, honestly, my goal is that you get used to being really organized with keeping your things. So really, when you're right in the middle, it's like, okay, time to go to lunch, you take this, you think, where does this go? This goes in my science, the pocket of my science folder. Keep it in there, okay? Better yet, when you get your foldables every day, glue them in first thing. I'll always have the page number that it goes on up on the board. So grab it, be like, this goes on page 15, okay? Number my page 15, glue it in right away. Then you don't lose it, okay? The people that glue it in right away, it's the easiest for them not to lose it because it's just in here. Okay, that was a lot of information about interactive notebooks. We'll keep talking about it throughout the days, and as we do it, I'll guide you through the first ones, and it will become habit. By a month from now, you will come in, you'll grab your foldable, you'll fill it out, you'll know how to put, table of contents, write it in there. This is something, you'll get a little sheet like this that shows your grade. Oh, this person got 100, otherwise I wasn't going to show it to you. 100%. Oh, and sometimes I'll put like what my favorite foldable is if you do a really fancy job on one. Okay. Let's go through some questions about these. Again, you have it for science and Bible this year. We're not doing math, but science and Bible, you'll have an interactive notebook. Yes, question.
When are we going to start this? Like today?
We're going to start this on Monday. Actually, you have already started it. You just don't know. You know this family foldable that you have, the purple one that we filled it in together? That's going on page 2 of your interactive notebook. You already have it. Page 1 is going to be the God is good all the time God is good sheet. You already got that. That was all part of our welcoming type activities, but I had you stick it in your folder because that will be pages 1 and 2 of your Bible notebook. Yes?
I have 3 questions.
Okay, we'll take them.
So are those numbers there for your not binders, for your foldables?
Yes. So what will happen, I'm going to turn this really quick over here so they can see what's going on over here. We have, sorry, girlies, you're just right there. That's fine. Okay, here's what happens. So when you come into the classroom and we do a lesson, let's pull these off right here. Let's say, okay. So we've got math, science, and Bible. My table of contents will always be up on the board. So if you ever get kind of mixed up, and it happens sometimes, if you're absent one time, or if you kind of get your page numbers mixed up, or sometimes maybe you had to leave for a dentist appointment, or you got called down to the office and you missed a little chunk. Okay, you always can come in every day and check to make sure that your interactive notebooks are up to date. Because it says right here, science. I don't know where number 1 is. I must have fallen down, I'll find it, but the table of contents will always be up here, okay? So for science, number 1 will be natural cycles title page. Number 2 will be elements, and I'll write it up there. Number 3 will be periodic table of elements. So sometimes about halfway through a unit, I'll be like, hey guys, why don't you get out your interactive notebooks and check your table of contents? And you'll check and make sure it matches. And then you'll go through your pages and make sure that your pages and your page numbers match up with your table of contents. Does that make sense? Okay, so say we're done with 7 and we're going on to the nitrogen cycle. Say if that's what we were doing today, I'll put number 8 up and say, all right everybody, page number 8 of your interactive notebook is going to be the nitrogen cycle. Go pick up your foldable and we're gonna do this lesson together. And so you'll do that. You'll get out your table of contents, you'll write page number 8, nitrogen cycle. You'll go get your foldable and we'll do our lesson together and then you'll glue it in. And that happens, again, probably about 3 times a week, sometimes 2 times a week. Like some of those foldables are a whole week's worth of lessons all condensed into one foldable of notes. Like the cell anatomy, that's about a whole week that we take pulling apart a cell. So you might be working on a foldable for a whole week at a time. But this will become habit for you, and I think you guys are going to do great. Yes?
When are we gonna have a locker check?
That's a great question. We haven't done any locker checks yet. We've had so much extra stuff that we've been doing that we haven't had any locker checks, but that will happen.
Can we do one?
Maybe. I do them as a surprise, so you can't go clean up your locker, but I do locker checks and give out dojo dollars for very clean and organized lockers. Any other questions about the interactive notebooks? Yes?
It's not about the interactive notebook, but I was gonna say something about.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. So, the general rule about the bathroom is, my preference is that you go right before you come during that 7:50 to 8 o'clock time slot, right? And then also at our special slot, which is, the 9:45 to 10:25 slot, and then at lunch, again at noon, and then before our special at 2. That gives us some natural places to try to make sure that you use the bathroom during those times, even if you don't feel like it. But our bodies are not robots, so we do have to go to the bathroom sometimes when it's not convenient. My preference is that if you can wait until I'm not doing an instructional time. For instance, if I'm teaching the water cycle and I'm right in the middle of it, if it's an emergency, yes, just go get the pass, put it on your chair and go. If it's not an emergency and you can wait till I'm done teaching the lesson, the most of the lesson is usually going to take is 20 minutes and then you're going to be working on something. So if you can wait until that 20 minutes is done, just so that you don't miss the information or miss the parts of the foldable that you need, and then once I let you start working, then go ahead and go, okay? So if you have to go now, you're fine, you can go ahead. Okay, that's our just intro quick to interactive notebooks. We will be answering questions and getting into the details of that as we go. But that will just give you a head start on what we're about to do. So, everybody has gotten your table of contents done, right? It's cut out, and I'll work on stapling it and getting it into your notebook, and you have all worked on your title page in your spare time. So, we are going to move on to a different lesson. So what I need you to do is put everything in a stack on the top of your desk. You can put pens and pencils away in your pencil box. And I'll look to see which table is ready first. We've got, table 1 is already ready, and table 2 is already ready. Just put away any randoms you have if you needed scissors out